From the heartland of America, focused on God, family, and country, the mouthpiece of the Midwest. This is Dale Carter's America.
Welcome back to our podcast. I'm Dale Carter. He is Kurt Wheeler. And today, this is an interesting podcast because we're going to talk about a lot of things relative to Kansas City and Jackson County and also things that are happening in the big wide world. So I just met Kurt's dad.
You did?
I didn't get his first name.
Eric,
okay.
Yeah.
Nice man. And he said that they listen to the podcast in Philadelphia. So there are going to be some certain things that people who listen in Philadelphia and friends of mine who listen around the country, frankly, we have some folks who listen around the world because of all the different ways you can get the podcast. There are going to be some things that you're not going to be interested in at all because they relate to what's going on locally, but we'll have enough global things in here for you to whet your appetite on with some fun videos. I promise we're going to tie it all together. And we do that because of great sponsors like Bob Watson, Blue Springs State Farm agent for 5 decades. No matter where you are in the United States and around the world, you've heard the name State Farm. It's the brand that's out there for the best insurance, auto, home, life. Well, in the Kansas City area, Bob Watson's the guy who's been doing it the longest, coming up on 51 years as an agent. He's my personal agent, has been for 30 plus years. 7th and Main in Blue Springs, 816-229-7878. Auto, home, life, said that. Bundle your home and car insurance. Save even more. Bob Watson's a guy that you should be at least getting a rate quote from, if not life advice. Bob will talk about all the things going on in your life that relate to insurance and make sure you've got the best path forward. I hope you get a chance to meet him. Our next live event is coming up on May 20th. That is a Tuesday at Funhouse Pizza in Lee's Summit. We usually tell folks to get there about 5, kind of like socialize and all that. And then behind the scenes stuff here, Kurt's like beating feet to get out of the radio station to get there and get everything set up. So sometimes we're ready to go by about 5:30. Sometimes it's closer to 6. What do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely a schlep. So everything that's in this room, I have to bring and set up. So.
Wow. So, and if anybody wants to come early and help him, I'm sure he wouldn't turn down the help, right?
Yeah, but it's almost like it's one of those things where by the time I explain to you how to do it, I might as well just do it myself. You know what I mean? So I'm not turning down the help, though.
All right. So that is May 20th. Put that on your calendar. It's a Tuesday night in Lee's Summit, and it's going to be about Jackson County because there's so many issues going on with Jackson County. We're about to have a special guest on, Jeanie Lauer from the Jackson County legislature. That night, we're going to talk about Jackson County with 3 Missouri state reps, all from eastern Jackson County, trying to do something about the mess that we find ourselves in. It'll be a very lively discussion about property taxes, making the assessor position an elected position, and ultimately leaving this shit show and setting up our own county. I've been talking about that how long now?
It's been a year or 2.
It's still out there.
Yeah.
And
also, I just want to say, too, if you're watching this or listening to this, make sure to go to the Facebook page and RSVP to the event. So I'll have the event all set up by the time that you're watching this. So go to the Facebook page and RSVP, share the post and all that, when we can get as many people out as we can.
I joined a group for recalling Frank White, and there are thousands of people on this group. So we're going to put it on there too. So I have a feeling that there are a lot of people who are so pissed about what's going on in Jackson County and how Frank White is dealing with it. Frankly, they're mad at my friend Jeanie Lauer, and some may have a valid reason for doing that. Sean Smith has been on our podcast many times. Sean seems to be leading the way here for saying, hey, we overbilled you by $250 million. You'd like your money back. I'd like my money back. I'm sure you would too. So it's going to be a lively discussion, and we hope that you are there for it. Meanwhile, if you're just a regular podcast viewer or watcher, we'd love for you to spread the word on what we do. Kurt, tell them how they can do that.
Yeah, so make sure if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble that you subscribe. Particularly on YouTube, you can subscribe, like the video, drop a comment, drop multiple comments, share it with your friends. It all helps the algorithm. You can listen to the audio only version on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and then join in the conversation on Facebook as well. And don't forget to RSVP for the event on the 20th.
And you'll find our Facebook page very useful, because when Kurt and I have a thought about something that's going on in the big wide world and we can't wait to get to the episode to talk about it, we drop a thought there and take quite a few comments.
Yeah. It's like 90% you, probably 10% me.
Okay.
Something like that.
It's an outlet for me.
Yeah.
And my wife will love this because it gets it off my personal page.
Right.
She's like, stop putting political shit on your personal page.
Right.
Stop it. And occasionally I can't help myself. I still want to do it. And
the Facebook page is the LLC for our social media presence.
Exactly. Hopefully we're not going to get sued. Cross our fingers on that. So Ron Fowler, Carolyn Caton, Mike Steinmeier, they are all reps from Eastern Jackson County in the Missouri House. Ron Fowler has been working with the Missouri State Tax Commission on giving them some teeth and giving them some direction. I mean, the governor, Mike Kehoe, was on with Pete over at KCMO, and he said, I'm tired of hearing about Jackson County. I want something done about it. The Speaker of the House is a guy I've known probably since he was a kid, because his dad is one of my neighbors. I mean, he's from Lee's Summit. First time we've had a Speaker of the House from the Kansas City area since the Civil War. So there are a lot of eyeballs watching this thing and wanting to get some things done. And Ron Fowler's doing a terrific job in the House. He and I served together on the City Council, and he will tell you at this event on May 20th, he and I didn't always see eye to eye. Mm-hmm. There were some fiery debates between the two of us, but we are dear friends, and I think he's doing a terrific job on this, so he's going to be there. Carolyn Caton has been a guest on this podcast. When she was running for the Missouri House, she won her seat, and now she's carrying the ball to force an election. I think they may have to do it statewide, because if we do it in Jackson County, it's never going to happen. But for Jackson County to have an elected assessor position, it's a political patronage job right now, and they have mucked the thing up so bad, I don't even know where the next assessor would start. Carolyn Caton is carrying the ball on that. And then Mike Steinmeier from Sugar Creek. Mike Steinmeier, he's basically taken on the banner for let's just get out of here. Let's set up our own county. So I've never met Mike, but I think he and I are going to be good friends.
So we have representatives from all of the various angles on this.
We do. And again, we're going to want you there, because I'm sure you've got questions too on any of these subjects or anything else that you want to bring up. They will be glad to help you with that, and we'll be there as well, filling in the blanks, I suppose. So that's coming up May 20th. It's a Tuesday. Again, gather about 5 o'clock. Get yourself some of Jim Dingman's finest pizza in Jackson County there from Lee's Summit or Blue Springs. Get yourself a cold drink. Gather around, and it's going to be an old-fashioned town hall, just like we ought to be doing, to talk about political issues. It's not about firebombing a Tesla. It's about sitting down, I'm serious, and having a rational discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
We don't cross that line. We don't. We shouldn't cross that line. So there you go. We're going to have special guests coming up here. We're going to talk about a lot of things going on in the world as well. This podcast would not be what it is without fine sponsors like Dr. Mark Taramina. And he's going to be there that night. When I went down the roster of who all was going to be there, he's like, I want to be there in the front row, because Mark Taramina is not only the best at helping you prevent colon cancer, he is a fine American who sees the world the way that we see the world. But as my friend Bob Watson told me when we were talking about him coming on board the podcast, he's been a Republican assholes and Democrat assholes. Yeah. He's bipartisan when it comes to colon cancer. Yeah. It's all about stopping it early, and 45 is the new 50. If you have not had your colonoscopy yet and you are over the age of 45, I am talking to you or that person you know. Get in their ear, because if we catch it early with a colonoscopy, which is a piece of cake. I just had my second one, and then I had a big cake afterwards. That's how it kind of works. You get in there, you find out either there's no polyps and we'll see you in 5 to 10 years, or you've got something and we're going to send it off for biopsy and we'll treat that. Mark Taramina at Midwest GI Health and Wellness in Lee's Summit, 816-836-2200. He's on the web at midwestgihealth.com. He is the guy you need on your side to prevent colon cancer, because colon cancer is a killer. Something else we all have coming in our future is, well, we hope we make it that far, is 65. It's the checkered flag for a lot of folks to get to Medicare. And regardless of what you hear, Donald Trump and the Doge folks are not gutting Medicare. They're not gutting Social Security. They're not going to gut Medicaid. Those things have been there. They're in law. They're going to be there for us when we need them. However, they are government programs, so they are very complicated. Let's just take Medicare. Medicare Simplified KC, Kirk Doris. Kirk Doris is at 816-701-6661 and on the web at medicaresimplifiedkc.com. If you're going to make it to 65, Medicare is going to be a big part of your life, but it's very complicated. He can help navigate those waters and get you dialed in as to how changes coming are going to impact you. He's got a lot of experience dealing with this, helping thousands of folks here in the Kansas City metro area. He's at 3600 South Nolan Road, Suite F. You can reach him on the phone at 816-701-6661. MedicareSimplifiedKC.com. That name says it all. As we welcome in from the Jackson County Legislature, my dear friend Jeanie Lauer. Special guest time now on Dale Carter's America, and more than just a guest, by way of full disclosure, a dear friend of mine who I served with on the Blue Springs City Council. She also has the insight of not only being a city councilman, but also a state rep in Missouri, and now she's right in the middle of the big controversy that's going on in Jackson County. She's a member of the Jackson County Legislature. Jeanie Lauer is with us. Jeanie, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Dale. Hope things are going well.
Yeah, they're going well for me. How are they going for you?
In my small world, I'm doing really well. In my county world, it's quite another chaotic situation.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know where to jump into all this. I guess we just jump into the big middle of it. And well, let's start with this. The assessments were, they're the root of this entire issue. People were, I guess, overly assessed, and there was a big controversy about that. And then the tax commission got involved at the state level, and there was a bill put out by Sean Smith to, I guess, comply with that. And Frank White vetoed it, and there was an override vote, and it's sustained. So that's kind of where we are today. Am I right?
That's correct. You covered about 2 years there.
Covered about 2 years and 20 seconds there. So where are we going with all this?
Well, I think we maybe need to step back and just get back to the core of the issue, which is there were issues with assessment, and everybody knows about that. There were a group of taxpayers, particularly those over 15% increase, that were feeling that they were assessed up inappropriately.
Yeah.
And so that started the whole look into how much people should truly be assessed. Now, according to state statute, our fair market values should come in between 90 and 110%. In 2019, they did. We were in compliance with the state. And in compliance means you get paid about $3 per parcel within your county for being in compliance. So Jackson County has about 300,000 parcels, which would mean about $1 million. Given that, with that situation, with the 15%, we now got into a higher market value, and that alerted the state tax commission with the appeals and so forth that were going on. So that, I'm kind of going through the litany of historic events here, but that opened up the investigation into what was going on and into the assessment process and some of the errors that have been made and some of the things that should be differently, which drove the court cases. There were 2 court cases, both done by Judge Cook, and one case came back favorable to the county, and another case very similar to that came back with just the opposite renderings. So we have 2 cases that are not even in conjunction with one another, which is what, from administration, they're looking at and saying, which one do you want us to follow? So with that, Legislator Smith presented a piece of legislation that said we should follow the State Tax Commission's order, which said we should roll back the taxes from 22 and 23 so that there would be no more than a 15% cap. Now, my understanding is that even if there is a 15% cap, that would still require a physical inspection. It would not just be a flat, if you get a 15%, it would still require physical inspection.
Okay.
So that led to Legislator Smith's legislation, which we voted on. There were 5 yeses and 4 noes. And the 4 noes were pretty much in concert with their thoughts that, first of all, we might not be done with the court cases, given that we had one that was contrary to what the other one said, and also that there was not a plan on how this would be implemented. If you think back to your or my 22 and 23 expenditures and say you owe money back from that year, that money's gone. And so from the county's perspective, any rollback that would happen at that point, the monies would need to come from somewhere, but we're not sure where.
You know, it's interesting. Well, it's interesting because I had a situation where I was in disagreement with the city of Kansas City over my 1% withholding tax, which I hate. I think I've told you about that. And they went back 5 years on me. And I guarantee you, I spent all that money. They still expected me to pay.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So it wasn't like, well, sorry, we spent all the money, so you're just kind of out of luck here. And I think that's what Sean Smith is saying. It's like he says we overbilled them by $250 million, and we need to take every step to fix that.
Mm-hmm. And if it can be fixed, I think that would be the great thing to do. But the other part of that, though, is that we have various taxing entities within the county. Of all of your property tax fees that go to the county, about 7% only goes to the county itself. The rest of it goes to varying other taxing entities, such as 60% goes to schools, a certain amount goes to the libraries, to the water districts, to mental health, to the blind pension fund. And so there are all these other entities that would have to go back and find monies as well.
Fire districts included in
cumbersome.
that? Fire districts included in that too?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different, to your point, there's a lot of different entities here that are involved in all this. That's why it is just such a complete mess. A couple of things I do want to ask you about. We are going to do a huge live event at Funhouse Pizza, which we talked about in the opening segment here today. That's going to be on May 20th. One of our former colleagues on the Blue Springs City Council, who's now a state rep, Ron Fowler, is going to be there. Carolyn Caton is going to be there. Mike Steinmeier is going to be there as well. And they're going to talk about Jackson County from the state perspective. Ron, I guess, has a bill in the House to put some teeth into what the Missouri Tax Commission wants to get done. Carolyn Caton has a bill to make the assessor of Jackson County an elected position rather than appointed position. And Mike Steinmeier's with me. He's like, why don't we just take our eastern suburbs and set up our own county? Which of those 3 things would you like to take, or would you like to take a shot at all of them?
Well, I think there could be some teeth put into, and at least not necessarily teeth, but points of clarification as to the State Tax Commission. So I think there's room for discussion there. And the second one having to do with the elected assessor, that's been put on the ballot before. It's been voted down, but it could certainly be put on there. It's to the taxpayer's choice whether they want that or not. There's room for discussion. And the third one, there's certainly room for discussion. It wouldn't be unique for that to happen. It's happened on the east side of the state, and there could be merits to that as well.
You say put it on the ballot. One of the biggest issues out there, I think anyway, from my perspective, having living here for 30 years, is that you have a county in Jackson County that is really 2 different counties. It's Kansas City, Missouri, and it's the eastern suburbs. We don't have a lot in common. And we feel like in the eastern suburbs, at least I do, and I think I speak for a lot of people, that when we have these elections, we get voted down because there's a bigger population in Kansas City proper, and they stick together and they vote us down. And so whether or not there ought to be an elected assessor, we're probably not going to win an election on a Jackson County ballot.
Yeah, it's very different. As you said, the demographics are different, and the whole group of characteristics that you would put in with voters. They're different for both areas. And even on the legislature, it's always very difficult to make sure the eastern side is represented when we're talking about where money should be spent, particularly with outside agencies or any other groups that might be able to help people. We want to make sure that Eastern Jackson County is getting its share as well.
You know, where I come down on this and where I really started talking about with Jeff Coleman, who you know well, about the idea of splitting off the county with the eastern suburbs. And it's not the first time that's been talked about. That's been talked about several times here. And to your point, in 1876, St. Louis and St. Louis County split over, I'm assuming, similar issues. But we started having this discussion after there was a vote on the ballot about the Andrew Jackson statue. Now, I'm plus minus on the Andrew Jackson statues in front of the courthouse. He was a president of the United States. The county is named after him. And we had an election. And it was determined that the statues ought to stay. And then the legislature, and I'm sure you weren't behind this, but the legislature said, hey, let's put it on the ballot again. And I'm like, really? You lost. Why are we putting it on the ballot again?
Yeah, and to even add to that, it's been brought up again and again to be put on the ballot again. I guess it's until you get the answer you want that you're going to keep trying.
I suppose so, but then I saw that and the assessments and everything, and I reached out to Coleman, and I'm like, what do you think about this? I did a little research, and it's happened in Missouri before. It seems like, you know, we've got two courthouses. We've got the Independence Courthouse, and you've got the Kansas City Courthouse. What do you think? And he said he was working on legislation to get that done. And now Mike Steinmeier is working on that legislation to get that done. You're an Eastern Jack person. You're a suburbanite like I am. I mean, what do you think? Do you think that there's a way for Jackson County to coexist between the city and the suburbs, or should we seriously be thinking about splitting?
There's a distinct differentiation between the two. I mean, we are the Kansas City Chiefs, although Jackson County pays an enormous amount of money to maintain them here. And Jackson County gets no recognition for that. And I think there are a number of situations like that where the Royals, you know, again, they're a Kansas City team, not necessarily a Jackson County team. And I realize that would sound maybe a little weird, but they're actually an independence anyway. So, or could be an independence if they wanted to move. Wherever they're going to move, they're going to have to determine what name they want to be called by. But there is something that is setting us apart, and the boundaries, the type of people, the whole role of management, where you have the mayor of Kansas City and you have the county executive of the county trying to manage those two things together. And of course, it's always going to come down to the culture of both taxing entities and how both individuals are going to oversee those.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to your point about sports franchises, you've got the New York Giants and the New York Jets actually playing in the state of New Jersey, and they're still the New York Jets and the New York Giants. So I think even if the Kansas City Chiefs move to Johnson County, Kansas, they're still going to be the Kansas City Chiefs.
They could very well.
I guess so. Where are you at on the Frank recall thing? That thing seems to be like a pot simmering on the stove.
I understand they've turned in signatures. That should be enough. I'm not sure how many have actually been confirmed as qualified voters. So I don't know that number, if that's actually good and ready to go or not to be put on a ballot. As far as the recall on Frank, I think that once they start digging, three legislators, Sean Smith, Manny Abarca, and Vanessa Husky, have asked the Attorney General to look into Mr. White's behaviors as of late to see what's going on. I'm not sure they're going to find anything there. The fact that one of their complaints is that he's been playing with the Monarchs every game, and that's not true. And that he's not in the office, which I know he is. I've seen him there regularly.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that there's going to be a lot of merit to that.
He was a great second baseman. I'm not sure how he's done as Jackson County executive. So a couple of final questions for you. Well, first of all, let's start with Frank. I mean, you know Frank pretty well. Do you think he's glad he got into this role, can't wait to get out of it, or is he entrenched and he wants to stay forever?
I will tell you, from what I know of Frank, Frank has a good heart, and he is out there to do what he believes is the right thing for the taxpayers. And he has always told me that it is his mission to make sure the taxpayers are taken care of and to do it in a legal way. And so with that, I'm going with that.
Okay, we'll go with that then. It's an interesting time, though, because it brings together people who are Republicans and Democrats. I don't think you could find a whole lot that Sean Smith and Manny Abarca would have in common, but they seem to have this in common.
That's true.
Yeah.
There are 9 legislators. There are 2 Republicans and 7 Democrats. At any given time in my first term there, you would not be able to pick out a group that went together on any particular topic. It would be very nonpartisan. It would be very much based on the issue, and whoever voted on that issue you felt was truly voting based on the citizenry of that area. This tends to be a block.
Yeah.
And the block stays no matter what. And there are definitely discussion points that are cemented in the ground with the group of 5. And as such, you end up with another type of think with the group of 4. And so it's very much butting heads. There is not collaboration where you can actually sit down and have rational discussion to come up with answers and solve problems. Very good at coming up with issues. Very good at doing that, but not resolving them.
All right. Well, I know you, and you're a person who likes to bring people together and solve problems. We worked together on the Blue Springs City Council. I thought you did a great job in the Missouri House. How much longer do you want to beat your head against this wall?
I have this year and next year, and then we'll see.
Okay. Jeanie, I love talking to you because you always enlighten me, and I thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast today.
Thank you for letting me be here, Dale. Good to see you.
You bet. So many of you who just heard that segment who live in Jackson County may be, I think I need to move. Cass County sounds really good right about now. Well, if you're going to move, no matter what stage of life you're in, whether you're looking for your first home or your forever home or whatever, it starts with a mortgage. And unless you play for the Chiefs or the Royals and you go out and you write a check for the thing. Very few people do that. Most of us have a mortgage. And the mortgage guy you need to talk to before you even think about getting that house, let's just find out what you can afford. TheRedCarpetLender.com. That is my buddy, Chad Taylor. Chad did my mortgage, and I am very happy with what he did for me. And he's rolling out the red carpet for thousands of folks just like you in whatever stage of life that you are in. And there's no upfront hard credit hit to see if you can get approved for a home loan. Chad will waive lender fees for veterans as a thank you for your service. They offer a wide variety of loan programs to help fit your needs and budgets. And you don't have to have perfect credit. Not a lot of people do. He can go as low as a 580 credit score. You don't need 20% down. Most loan programs are between 0 and 5% down. Chad is licensed in Missouri and Kansas. Find out what you can afford before you take the next step, and that is going out and looking for homes. Chad Taylor, he's my guy. TheRedCarpetLender.com. And as we're recording this podcast, Shedeur Sanders has not been drafted yet. And I think, Kurt, he would be a great fit for the Las Vegas Raiders. And that is Chad Taylor's favorite team. I mean, it just makes sense. They go hand in glove. It'll be great.
Why is that?
Because I think he's all flash and there's no sizzle there whatsoever. And he, to my eye and just everything I've seen and read, he's a troublemaker. So he belongs with the Raiders. And that just guarantees that Chad Taylor, TheRedCarpetLender.com, will be buying my lunch for many, many more years to come, because we have that standing bet every year, and Chad loses it most years. So give him your mortgage business, TheRedCarpetLender.com. And then when you find out what you can afford, then you make a call to my next friend, Michael Schroer. And I know Michael's going to be there in the front row on May 20th, because he didn't get into this podcast so we'd make him a lot of money selling houses. He's doing fine selling houses. He wants to be part of this podcast because he believes in what we're doing, the mission of what we're doing. Actually telling the truth, getting beyond orange man bad, or the other extreme, orange man can't do no wrong, because we don't do that either on this podcast. Michael Schroer, he's the guy who can help you find that house. So once you've got the loan approval from Chad, then you call Michael at 816-373-8400. Let's get his damn phone number right. 816-373-8400. 8400. Okay. He's with Remax Elite in Lee's Summit. And again, he can get you that starter home. He can get you the home with a lot more bedrooms if you're going to populate at the level that Kurt's populating the world over there. And then when those kids, they move out and they go to college or whatever, you're going to want to downsize. That's kind of the level of life that I'm fast approaching. So we want to downsize. Or you've got that piece of property that's just gorgeous and you want to build your dream home. Michael Schroer is the name you need. SCHROER. Real estate pro with Remax Elite in Lee's Summit. 816-373-8400. His cell phone, which I don't think he minds me giving out. He hasn't said so anyway. 816-520-9342. Get Michael Schroer on the case for you, and you're going to find your dream home before you know it. Last time we recorded, we took Easter weekend off. Hope that didn't break too many hearts, but, Easter is Easter, and we took that off. We ended with Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana, who's one of my favorite people in the Senate. He is the Matlock of the Senate. All he needs is a seersucker suit, and he's going to be right there. He set up Operation Let Them Speak. Mm-hmm. And so I think as long as they're saying stupid stuff, we should let them speak on the podcast so you can see what we're up against out there, okay? The hills that they want to die on. Let's start with Senator Chris Van Hollen. He is a senator from Maryland. And if you followed the news at all, you know that we have deported this man who had an order of deportation. Garcia was his name, right?
Yeah.
He is in El Salvador.
In prison in El Salvador. MS-13. Have we proven that yet? So there's old court documents that show that he was at least rubbing elbows with MS-13. And then there was some tattoos on his hand that potentially were, pointing in that direction.
Did I see a story this week that he was driving a vehicle from an admitted sex trafficker?
I'm not sure about that. Maybe.
Yeah.
But
so
I haven't fully kept up on the story, but there's definitely, some shady stuff in his past.
Well, in the news, definitely deep in the pocket of the Democrats still, calls him a Maryland man.
Yeah.
A Maryland man who has a halo around his head and is probably a scoutmaster. No, that's not true. He beats the woman who gave him children. She's called the cops more than once. He's been in front of I don't know how many judges. There is a deportation order out there. And, so Chris Van Hollen, instead of spending time with one of his constituents who was murdered by an illegal immigrant, didn't even bother to call the mom on that. He's like, the hill he wants to die on, and several Democrats are, is this guy's got to come out of El Salvador and he's got to come back to the United States.
Here's the clip.
Anybody who can't stand up for the Constitution and the right of due process doesn't deserve to lead.
Chris says Mr. Garcia's had no due process. He's been in front of 17 judges, some of them twice. Probably $5 million worth of legal fees, and he hadn't had to pay a dime. Unless you're next level obtuse, you know that Mr. Garcia is never coming back to the United States, ever.
But that's the hill that they want to die on, right? And due process. He's right about that. First of all, nobody bitched. Nobody raised a stink when Barack Obama was deporting millions of illegal aliens. No Democrat ever said a word about it, and he did it anyway. Joe Biden then opens the floodgate in the debate. I'm going to keep bringing this up till I'm blue in the face, but in the debate when he was running for the Democrat nomination, he's the one on the debate stage who said, come on, we want you, come on. Well, what did they do? In every one of these countries, third world countries, they opened their prisons and sanitariums. They did not send their Nobel Peace Prize winners. They sent the worst of the worst and flooded through our southern gate. But because we have this thing called the Constitution, they do have due process rights. The 5th and 15th Amendment are very clear on this. It doesn't say citizen. It says if you're in the United States, you have due process. My argument is Garcia's had due process. There's an order of deportation. He's out. Now, maybe there was a clerical error on how it happened or where he ended up, but if they get their wish and he comes back into the United States, he's going on another plane somewhere else.
Yeah. To me, it's just, again, I haven't been following the story super closely, but it's just amazing to me the disparate treatment that certain people will give illegal aliens or criminals or whatever. I mean, should we have sympathy to some degree, that they can be reformed or whatever, maybe, but you look at how they treat this guy compared to how they treat like lawful pro-life protesters, throw them in jail, to get
They're
rid
terrorists,
of them.
domestic terrorists.
And it's so clear. It's clearer than ever, the agenda, and, that they want to tear down people who are defending certain things and lift up people who they think are going to be on their side.
Well, and what do you think about him not even reaching out to the mom of that woman who was brutally attacked and killed by an illegal? Didn't even reach out to her. Because right now, the Democrats, for whatever reason...
The senator, you mean?
Yeah, the senator. He didn't even reach out. Whoever's giving them this advice that this is the optic you want. You want to be seen with Garcia. And I don't know if you saw the pictures or not, but he was wearing a Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl hat.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, let me see if I can find it.
And you know what? He didn't look like he was being too abused, and he's not in that hideous prison that everybody is talking about, but they have detained him. Why did they detain him? Because he's an MS-13 gang member, and there's a gang war going on in El Salvador, and he's a member of one of the gangs, which is why he wanted to come to the United States, because he was fearing for his life, not from the government, but from the rival gang. There you go. That's the picture. And I saw that from the side, and I zoomed in on it, and it's like, my goodness, that is a Chiefs Super Bowl hat.
Sure is.
I have that hat.
Yep. I've seen you wear it. Yeah. Maybe we should deport you too.
Yeah, I guess so. I could be. Well, that's what the Democrats want you to believe. They want you to believe if Garcia can be deported, so can you. So can you, Kurt.
Okay.
ICE is knocking at your door. You're going to be deported. That's just complete, utter horseshit. Okay.
I mean, just look at the look on this guy's face. Look at the longing. Longing gaze he has.
He did a series of videos.
Criminal illegal.
Did you see the videos? He did a series of videos from Maryland, driving in the car, getting on the plane. I mean, it was like he was making a production.
It's pathetic.
He's running for something, right? I mean, there's a big line of folks who want to be president in 2028, and I guess he thinks this is the hill that's going to elevate him. I think it has backfired horrendously in his face. Speaking of backfiring, 2 judges, and this has just happened in the last 24 hours, have been arrested for harboring illegals. Have you seen that?
Yeah. I'm pulling up this picture right now because this is just hilarious. So this is one of the judges here with members of Tren de Agua in his backyard.
Yeah.
Look at the pose.
I'm telling you. So,
He's like, yeah, man, I'm one of the cool white people. I got my essays with me, man. Come on.
And you knew what would happen, right? When these judges got arrested, the left would just be in complete freak-out mode. And I told you this when Trump got inaugurated. If there's one blade of grass out of sort on the White House lawn, they're going to be calling for him to be impeached. So I was scrolling through X this morning, and immediately what came up was Chuck Schumer and Amy Klobuchar. And Amy Klobuchar, to me, was the most hilarious. We don't know all the facts, but putting judges in jail is a terrible look for this country. We don't know all the facts. She admitted, we don't know all the facts. Okay, these are the same people, and I put this up on the podcast Facebook page today because I just couldn't wait for us to record the episode. These are the same people who sent a goon squad to Mar-a-Lago to a former president's house and beat the freaking door down.
Yeah.
These are the same people who in deep blue districts indicted a former sitting president. These are the same people. Remember the New York judge who told the jury in jury instruction, he didn't give them specific crimes. He said, if you come close to thinking that perhaps he violated a law, come back with a guilty verdict.
Remember this?
Oh, yeah. That's hanging in the White House now. He kind of loves it.
I guess we're supposed to forget that and, say that. I mean, was he hanging out with criminal illegal aliens in his backyard, grilling brats and drinking beer? Is that why this mugshot was taken?
77 million people voted for this guy in 2024. All of the swing states went his way. And what do you think the number one issue, if not number one, top 3, was, Biden let all these people in. Get them out.
I think it was the number one issue in polling, or
Yeah.
in some polls at least.
All right, so there's that. They're speaking out, and it's like they're full of outrage that this would ever happen in this country. We're a step away from Nazi Germany right now. But yet I still remember ringing in the back of my ears, no one is above the law. Do you remember that? No one is above the law.
Yeah.
I guess unless they wear a black robe and, they've been elected by Democrats, I guess that shields them from anything. Speaking of black robes, parents are finally getting a hearing at the Supreme Court on being able to shield their elementary school kids from LGBTQ++ material. Some of it quite explicit. Neil Gorsuch, did you hear him at all? Did you hear any of the audio from this? You don't get video with the Supreme Court, you get audio. But he was actually going through it with the guy who was defending all of this and reading passages from this. Do you really want 5-year-olds? And this guy's like on his heels. He doesn't really know how to respond to that. Yep. And Gorsuch is just down to the granular level on it. But the comment, I thought, even Elena Kagan, who I think Elena Kagan might be a closet conservative because she's starting to come around on things, and she's coming around on this. She said, I could see why parents would be upset with their kids being exposed to this. Ketanji Brown Jackson, who I'm almost positive has never even read the Constitution and can't tell you what a woman is because she's not a biologist.
Yeah.
She knows what you should think about your kids and public school and being exposed to this.
The parent can choose to put their kid elsewhere. You don't have to send your kid to public school. I'm struggling to see how it burdens a parent's religious exercise if the school teaches something that the parent disagrees with. You have a choice. You can homeschool them.
There we go, Kurt. You plan to do that anyway.
There's a lot of cuts in there, so I'd be curious of the full context. But yeah, I mean, that's just ridiculous. Man, where to even start with that?
I mean, you have a choice. You don't have to send them to public school.
Yeah, I mean, you do have a choice, but first of all, I don't know about her position on this, but many people are trying to eliminate that choice or make that choice very difficult, where if you want to send your kids to public school or you want to homeschool your kids, you're out of pocket significantly. You don't get your tax money back. So it's very difficult for a lot of parents to homeschool or to send to private school. Private schools are very expensive. So it's not just as simple as, well, yeah, you can just send them somewhere else, whatever. Yeah. It's no big deal.
Well, we had Jeanie Lauer on talking about Jackson County taxes and all this, and this is the case everywhere. If you look at your property tax bill, Kurt, you will see the different taxing entities that Jeanie talked about, and the biggest chunk of your property tax dollars are going to fund the public schools. So you do have a voice. You do have a role. And, who's the crazy lady who's in charge of the teachers union?
Oh, we had her on a couple weeks ago. I forget her name.
Yeah, I forget her name too, but she's very harsh.
Yeah.
She basically says these parents had no right to clutter the court docket with any of this.
Yeah. Well, why do you think all these schools are putting all their money towards administration? Why do you think they're hiring all these new administrators and no new teachers, or they're not paying teachers more? Well, this is why. It's because they want to shield themselves from criticism. They want to empower the union. They want to empower the state to control the curriculum, and they don't want parents to have any say in it. And so parents, will go to these school board meetings and they'll say, look at what is in this book that you're teaching my kids, about gay sex or whatever. And,
right.
and they just sit there and take it and nothing happens.
Yeah.
It's like all these, that's why, like the C-SPAN thing, I have a hard time watching that too. It's just not interesting to me because nothing ever happens. You have somebody go in front of a hearing. You have Fauci, go in front of a hearing in the Senate. Everyone yells at him and nothing changes. So,
right.
But even, and then the other thing too is like with private schools, she's saying, well, you can send your kids to private school. Again, like that's an easy decision to make.
Expensive.
And then two, as if private schools are just automatically exempt from this. You know what I mean? Like it's happening in private school too. And I'm kind of going off script here a little bit, but there was a really interesting video that kind of went viral. I don't know if this story is new or not, but this lady is talking about some of the funding for private schools. And I want to play this, see what you think about it.
Do you want me to give you a fun example of how little our government officials know about what's happening in private equity? Just a really fun example. Why do they want to shut down TikTok? What's the excuse they've been using? We know it's because Meta is paying them, but what excuse are they using?
Because China, it's dangerous that they're going to own our data. It's for national security.
All of the politicians have kids in private school for their safety, not because they're elitist. It's for their safety. They're in some of the most elite private schools in the United States, in every state in the United States. Do you know who acquired the largest collection of private school, like super elite private schools in the United States?
Who?
It sounds Italian. Primavera Private Equity. Do you want to know who they're owned by?
Who?
The Chinese Communist Party is literally in control of the most elite prep schools in the United States and the curriculum being taught to our politicians' children.
Wow.
That happened in 2017, I believe. But so again, it's not exempt anywhere. And China, you know, like they're buying our farmland. They're doing all this. Now they're buying our private schools, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's funny, the name too, Primavera. It's like they're trying to hide it. They're trying to hide the ball, you know. Oh, it's Primavera. Oh, not Chinese, Primavera, Italian.
I don't think the Italians are a problem right now. The Chinese may well be in a problem. Well, I mean, homeschooling is still homeschooling, and you know, I would say what if you want to homeschool, you should, right? And you should call the Jackson County assessor and say, you know, that number that I'm paying on my property tax, I'd like that back.
Yeah.
It'll be a short conversation, but I think you should have it.
Yeah.
You should be able to take your money out of this system. You can't. That's where they'll draw the line. They want the money.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. Okay, moving on. The civil war between the old guard and the radical left and the Democrat Party continues. This is DNC Vice Chair David Hogg threatening to primary older Democrats.
Pulling up the clip here. And here we go.
Office so long that they were literally passing away while they were there, and we're also missing critical votes because of that. That really worries me. What we're looking at is how can we find the least effective members of Congress and get them to either not run for office again if they are in a safer seat that we're not going to potentially lose to Republicans, and is there a young person in their district that we can get elected that can be a generational leader? And a lot of the people who are talking about this say to me, David, why is this needed? And the fact of the matter is right now, our approvals with our base are at record lows. We have 27% support from our own base right now. We lost vote margins with every single demographic except older voters and the well-educated. There is not a future of our party if we do not dramatically turn this around. Let me be clear. There are people who suck of all ages. Unfortunately, it is not as simple to say,
do you own a mirror?
oh, we just shouldn't have somebody above a certain age in Congress. There are great young people in Congress. There are terrible young people in Congress, and same thing goes for older people as well. If we had the same number of people in Congress that are between the ages of 25 and 30 as there are in the general population, we would have over 40 members of Congress under the age of 30. Right now, we have one. That is not good for the future of the Democratic Party, and we need our young people who are on the front lines of experiencing the anxiety of going through a school shooter drill, to experiencing the climate crisis, the student debt crisis, and the housing crisis, to be in Congress to legislate on the policies that they're going to live to see the consequences of.
That sounds to me like he's running.
Yeah.
Because he said we need young people who have had the experience of being through a school shooting. He's talking about himself.
Well,
even though he wasn't there.
Yeah, I think he did go through a school shooting.
Well, he wasn't there when it happened. He went to the school, but he wasn't there when it happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the chairman of the Democrat Party, not Democratic Party, David, you don't get that. The Democrat Party, the chair basically said, if you want to step away from your role and influence primary campaigns, you can, but you can't do it from here.
Right.
So the party apparatus is like, you know, that's not going to work. But it is interesting. Dick Durbin this week says he's not going to run for re-election to his Senate seat in Illinois, which was probably a very safe seat. So we are seeing some of the old guard go away. It's going to be interesting who they get replaced by on the Democrat side. Are they going to be these wackadoodles like Bernie Sanders and AOC?
Well, to me, from what I see from them, it's all identity politics. So people like David Hogg would say, well, we need more, representation.
Yeah.
So it's not that they want younger people because they think they're smarter or whatever. They want like the trans, minority, disabled person, like so.
Well, if you want to do it based on the demographics of the country, let's do that. I mean, how many black members of Congress are there? How many would there be if you did it by demographic?
Yeah,
they'd scream to high heaven over that.
Yeah.
What are we, about 6-7% African American? I'd have to look that up.
No, it's
Is
like
it higher?
12. It's like 12 or 13%.
And where are we in Congress? I'll bet it's a higher number than that.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I could try and look it up.
Something that we could look into. We don't have to look into it right now, because I want to get to my favorite clip of the week under, let them speak. Liz Warren. Now, she goes on a podcast and she thinks it's a friendly podcast. Mm-hmm. And this is why you need the video, because the video is perfect on this. Look at her facial reactions to his questions.
Yeah.
Because they tell more than just hearing the audio.
Yeah. And I, just as a preface too, I heard/saw this clip twice. The first time I just heard it, and then the second time I saw it. And you're right. It's not just this clip, but in general, like people's facial expressions and body language really tells a lot.
It's kind of like, I can't believe you asked me that question.
Right. Let's check it out.
Regret saying that President Biden had a mental acuity. He had a sharpness to him. You said that up until July of last year.
I said what I believe to be true.
And you think he was as sharp as you?
I said I had not seen decline.
Look at that look.
At that point.
You did not see any decline from 2024 Joe Biden to 2021 Joe Biden?
Not when I said that. The thing is, he was...
You can see the gears turning, man.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, the thing is, whenever they say... See, the thing is that their brain's going,
oh, yeah. How do I get out of this mess?
Yeah. How quick are you?
Sharp. He was on his feet. I saw him. Live event. I had meetings with him a couple of times.
Senator, on his feet is not praise. He can speak in sentences is not praise.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Look, it is.
You're almost there.
The question is, what are we going to do now?
There you go. Yeah. That's the pivot. That's the question. How do we get out of it?
It's just so interesting because she can't even tell the truth now, right? Like, she wasn't telling the truth then, but she can't even tell the truth now. It would be so easy to just say, you know what, I was wrong, and just move on.
Well,
nobody's gonna try and nail you down on it. You can wipe your hands of the whole situation. I was wrong. I got it wrong. Hindsight's 2020, whatever you want to say, and you're fine. But they can't even do that.
In the back room of the Democrat Party, where the leaders of the party get together in a sealed room to where you can't hear what they're saying, and they do tell the truth is this: they should never have let Biden run again. They should have gone to him with plenty of time to get a primary process going and get a truly vetted candidate to run against Donald Trump. And they didn't do it. They lied. The big lie went all the way to July, that he was sharp as a tack, that he was running circles around everybody in the White House. And then he face plants on national television. And then it's like, oh, shit, the secret is out. And it's funny because now they're all writing books about it. These people on the media who covered for him are writing books about it. To me, that's hysterical. And so their backup plan was Kamala, who was more unpopular than he was.
Yeah.
So in their moments of honesty, it won't be in front of a camera, even with a friendly podcast host. When they get in the sealed room, they know what happened. Yep. They screwed up. But you're right. They'll never admit it.
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of old news at this point because it's long gone, in the news cycle at least, and Trump is president. But it's just a testament to the strategy overall. And it's the same thing when you see like articles from mainstream news outlets and they get something glaringly wrong. And then, you point this out, how the correction is always like buried.
Page 60.
Yeah. They just correct it and they don't say anything about it. So people still think that whatever the initial thing that they put out is true, even though they've long since corrected it, that it doesn't matter. I mean, I just think honesty is it's such an important thing, like in general, but in politics, you want somebody who you feel like is being honest with you. And that's why Trump is so popular, maybe he doesn't always say the correct thing. Maybe we disagree with him on certain issues. Maybe he's, a bull in a china shop or mean or whatever, but he's honest. He says what's on his mind all the time, for better or worse. And that's what we need more of.
My phone, I don't know how you have yours set up, but I get alerts from all the major networks or whatever. And because of Trump's honesty and his accessibility, every morning when I get up, it's like, Trump said that, Trump said that, Trump said that. And the thought crossed my mind, you never got that when Biden was president because he never said anything.
Right.
Unless it was in a scripted moment. Even his press conferences, the very few of those, you remember when he would go out and he'd have like the list with pictures on it, who he was supposed to pick out. Well, they tell me I got. Can you imagine Trump doing that? Oh, they tell me I've got to pick this guy.
Yeah, he would actually say that too. That's the funny thing. Like, he would have the card and he would be like, they gave me this card and they tell me I have to read down the list. Frankly, I'm not going to do that. We're just going to go off again. He just he would totally throw them under the bus.
So that's what we have now. And the media loves that. They lap that up. It's like, okay, well, we're going to parse every word that he's ever said. It's like he comes out with something. They ask him a question. He goes, that might be a good idea. Trump says this is a good idea. Right? Yeah. So that leads us to the pivot. Thank you, Liz, for the off-ramp there, which we didn't take, but now we're taking
Pocahontas. We call her Pocahontas, right?
High cheekbones. We move on to Royal Roofing and Solar, Austin Watterson's company. They do a fantastic job on roofs. How do I know? Because I have one. They put the roof on my house, and they'll get up and they'll examine your roof. We've come through a period in Kansas City with a lot of damaging storms that have gone by. Who knows? Maybe you'll get your roof paid for by the insurance company. Austin and his inspectors are great at making that happen and working with the insurance company to get you what you deserve. Either way, if you've got a house, you got to have a roof on it. And if it's time, you got to get my guys from Royal Roofing and Solar up on that roof to take a look at it and do that inspection. Roofedbyroyal.com is the website, and you can reach Austin and his fine team at 816-540-7057. Royal Roofing and Solar. You want to put a royal roof on your house. They actually came out to my house this past week because one of those storms knocked one of the gutter pieces off of my house, right? I was looking out. It was a terrible rainstorm, and I was looking out at my house, and there was like a piece of gutter over the front porch, and rainwater was just pouring out of it. And I said, that cannot be the design.
Yeah, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah. So I went out in the front yard and I looked behind the bushes, and there was a piece of my gutter laying there on the ground. And I called Austin and I'm like, this is a ticky-tack thing. Would you do that? He goes, I'll send a guy over, zip, we'll have it done, no time whatsoever.
Yeah,
that's the kind of guy that Austin is.
It helps when you know the owner of the company too. You can just call him directly.
I think he would take care of other people too.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I see those trucks going out every day and every night. Royal Roofing and Solar, he's the guy. 816-540-7057. I think he might be at our May 20th event too. At least I hope so. I know Jim Dingman's going to be there because we're doing it at his place.
He better be there.
He better be there. Fun House Pizza. 2 locations, Blue Springs on 7 Highway, Lee Summit on 50 Highway. They've got fantastic pizza, and it's a great place to gather for whatever you've got going on. And when we need to have a meeting of the public, which we're going to have on May 20th, and there are major issues out there, in colonial days, they would have it at the tavern, right? They'd go to the tavern in whatever town it was, and they would hash all these things out. They wouldn't go to the Tesla dealer and set the Teslas on fire. They just didn't do that in colonial days.
Yeah. Instead, they'd get drunk and then fight each other.
And throw tea off of a boat in Boston Harbor.
Yeah.
So that just tells you Massachusetts has been a problem all the way back to the beginning. I'm way off track here. Just get to Funhouse Pizza. Even if it's just a night out and you want to get some pizza, get it online. This is, we record this on Saturday. I always think I need to go online at funhousepizza.com and order my favorite pizza from Funhouse and take it home with me. Jim Dingman is ready there to serve you at 50 Highway in Lee Summit, 7 Highway in Blue Springs, the 2 locations he owns of Fun House Pizza. Okay, let's get back to Trump world. This kind of bothers me, honestly. It's like every day and every week he's signing executive orders. Not a fan. And I don't think you're a fan of executive orders either, are you? As a macro
thing, probably not, but it just depends on what it is. I mean, there are certain things that do fall within the executive jurisdiction, So those things that are relevant and are the correct things, then I'm for it. But it would be a case by case thing.
Yeah, I prefer legislation.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way to go. And right now, until the midterm, and the clock is ticking on that. I don't know the exact day count. I haven't looked it up for today. But the clock is ticking on the midterms. And as I tell all of my friends on the other side, if you think Trump is so bad, if you think we are sliding into Nazi imperialism or whatever you think is going on at the White House, find an issue and run on it, and then you can impeach the guy again. That's how our system works. But right now, as it stands, after the election, he has the House, he has the Senate, he has the White House, and because of what's happened historically over the last 20 years, he has the Supreme Court. A huge advantage on the Supreme Court. So right now, he should have the deck stacked, and why he is wasting time signing executive orders every day and not working with Congress, his majorities, to get this stuff put into concrete legislation, I do not understand.
Yeah, certainly if that's possible on any of these issues, then they should be doing that. I agree.
Yeah. What he is doing with the executive orders, he is pushing Democrats into a corner where they have to defend, and again, they end up dying on really unpopular hills. Okay? Here's one. Freezing funding to universities like Harvard over their anti-Semitism, how they've treated Jews on their campus, and DEI. Okay? So it raises questions. It's going to go through the courts, and the lower courts, they always find a nice blue jurisdiction to kick it out, stop it, slow it down, but ultimately it goes to the Supreme Court where you're going to get a read on separation of powers. And I'm not saying everything that Trump is doing is right. There are certain things I agree with him on with these things and things I don't agree with him on. And I think the Supreme Court has shown him that. I mean, even the 3 justices he appointed have gone against him when things have gone to the Supreme Court. Because ultimately, it's not Donald Trump. Ultimately, we are governed by the Constitution of the United States. But what he's doing is, again, he's pushing Democrats into unpopular stances, and he's also raising really good questions. And the question I had out of this, Kurt, why are we, you and I, spending $2 billion with Harvard or any institution? Why are we doing that? Why are we sending taxpayer money there? Did you know that Harvard and all these institutions have endowment funds? They're sitting on $53 billion in an endowment fund.
Of taxpayer money?
No, of their money.
Oh, of their
money. They're
money.
not spending their money. They want our money.
Right. Yeah, no, I certainly agree that we shouldn't be sending them any money at all. I just wouldn't use anti-Semitism as an excuse to take away their money because that's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, I agree on that.
You don't think they're being anti-Semitic?
No. And I mean, where's the executive order against anti-Christian bias?
I don't know. The Rady's going. He may sign one this week. I mean, he's coming back from the Pope's funeral.
I highly doubt it. I mean, there's a reason that all these people are focusing on anti-Semitism so hard, and it's because of the influence, in our government is not coming from, Vatican City. It's coming from a different place.
Okay. Well, before we start a holy war, let's move to another topic here, and that's National Public Radio, NPR, which is about to lose $100 million of the $121 million that goes into public radio each year. So they're going to lose the lion's share of their budget. And again, it raises the question, in 2025, when you can get your information anywhere, all right? And again, I always tell people, don't take what I'm saying as gospel. Don't take what Kurt's saying as gospel. If things don't seem quite right to you, there are a million places you can go to confirm, to get some information from places that don't have an agenda. Why in the world in this day and age are we spending any money on National Public Radio or the public broadcasting system?
Yeah.
Why? It raises all these good questions. So he is raising some good questions, and, Democrats are dying on unpopular hills, and I'm not sure how that helps them win an election.
Yeah, I don't know if the anti-Semitism thing is as popular as people think that it is, genuinely, because I think people are starting to look at that and they're saying, is this real? Like, is this blown out of proportion? Is it just people criticizing Israel? You know, like, what are they calling anti-Semitism? And then on top of that, why are we focusing on this so much? You know,
well, I think in terms of colleges, they're calling it that because Jewish students are purportedly being harassed on campus, which is bad. And again, you know, this gets back to what you can do and what you can't do. I mean, you can be on campus all day long if you're an American citizen, not somebody we've invited into the country. I mean, Trump's already fought that battle, but you can be an American citizen. You could go to a major university and say, you know, down with Israel, down with the Jews, I'm for Hamas, rah, rah, rah. Mm-hmm. But when you throw a chair through a window, when you take over a building and don't allow classes to be taught, when you harass Jewish students trying to go to class, you've stepped over the line. And there has been some of that.
Yeah, there definitely has been some of that.
And he's got a thorn up his ass about DEI, you know, and they won't renounce their DEI thing. And as far as DEI goes, in the private sector, in a company, a lot of companies have gotten away from DEI because they see the way the winds are blowing out there. If you own a private company and you want to put in whatever DEI things you want to put in, go for it. Mm-hmm. It's not popular. You know, if you're out front about it, you won't get employees, you won't get customers, but it's a free country. Go do what you want to do. Yeah.
And under an ideal scenario, if they weren't getting public funding, then universities could theoretically do the same thing, right? If they were totally funded by just their students or private donors or whatever, then they can do whatever they want, but that's not the case. So
So all he's doing in this case is saying, okay, do what you want to do. You just won't do it with tax money.
Right.
And that's our money. You know, we ought to have a say in that. And I think because of these omnibus bills that go through, we have no idea what our money is being spent on. And so now they've shed some light on it. They've called some attention to it. We've made a big deal out of the debt and the deficit, which is continuing. But it's raising questions about why are we spending money on this? And I'll agree with Bill Clinton on something he wanted to do, like Ronald Reagan wanted to do. The line item veto would solve a lot of this crap. Mm-hmm. If you had a president who could look at the omnibus budget and say, sex changes in Africa, we're not going to do that. You know, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. And then if Congress feels so strongly about it because there's a national sentiment for it, they would override those line item vetoes. But we don't have that. It's sink or swim with whatever the omnibus budget says, and it's 15,000 pages long. Nobody's going to read it, and we just keep sucking money out of the national economy, sending it to the swamp, and it's still not enough. And so they take the difference and they put it on the bottom line, and that's how we get to almost $37 trillion in debt.
One of many. Yep.
Yeah. So are we moving on, or are there a couple of things in here that you want to show?
We can move on.
Okay. Student loan payments must resume. Boy, Democrats have their hair on fire about that. Okay. Again, this is, you have signed the bottom line that you're going to take out money to help you go to school. The federal government is going to help you do that. You're going to make me repay it? Oh my God. What the hell's the matter with you? I don't have to, do I have to repay this? So I found this clip and I thought it was really funny for a couple of reasons. So fire that up.
Republicans not only voted against forgiving student loan debt, they also voted to increase the interest rates on those debt payments that people are making to make up for the pause on the payments that people were making for COVID. Let's talk about it. On top of everything that I just explained, they also voted to reinstate student debt for more than 260,000 public servant workers whose loan balances were wiped clean in September 2022.
Stop right there. Stop right there. Okay, they were not wiped clean. They were transferred to other taxpayers, and just because you're in a public service role does not mean you get a break from paying back your student loan. Does it mean you get a break from paying your car payment or your house payment or your credit card payment? Why do you get special treatment just because of the job that you went into? You took out the loan, you repay the loan. Go ahead.
Student debt of nearly $20 billion, which accounts to an average of $72,000 per person, would be put back onto the shoulders of teachers, nurses, first responders, and those who just recently qualified under the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program to get their loans forgiven. But here's the real kicker of this whole entire situation, which really pisses me the fuck off. Insert this piece of shit. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen tweeted, "If you take out a loan, you pay it back. A student loan is no different from a house or car loan payment. taxpayers shouldn't be forced to foot the bill. Senator Mullen took out $1.4 million in PPP loans, and he never paid it back. He had it forgiven. Make it make sense.
I'm going to make it make sense for you, okay? Make it make sense for me, bro. All right, I'm going to make it make sense for you right now, because the PPP program was put in place during a national emergency. We had COVID. It was going to shut down the economy. And the PPP program said, we'll give you this loan, and if you check off all these boxes, you don't have to pay it back. It was written into the law, right? Because the government wanted you to keep people employed through a time when you weren't going to get any revenue. That's as simple as that. It was put into the program. Okay, the student loan program never said that. It never said, hey, if you become a police officer, you don't have to pay this back. Nobody held a gun to anybody's head and said, you have to go to a liberal arts college and get a basket weaving degree that you're never going to be able to monetize. Nobody held a gun to your head.
Yeah, it's obviously a different thing, the student loans and the PPP. I mean, that was probably a mistake too. We should have just left the economy open and not even had
Who
to
knew,
do that.
Kurt? I mean, at that time, who knew?
Yeah.
We were dealing with something we'd never gone through before. And I guarantee you, if you opened a history book to the Great Depression in the 30s, that Franklin Roosevelt put programs into place that if he were a Republican in 2025, they'd be bitching about to the high heavens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because he did some things that, in retrospect, probably don't pass constitutional muster, but he did it because we were going through a national emergency. And I'm not sure that since the Great Depression, we've had anything that would qualify as a national emergency on the scale that COVID did. We shut down the country.
Yeah. Well, that was the national emergency, right?
Right.
The national emergency wasn't the virus. It was the response to the virus.
Well, and it was the unknown.
Was the national emergency.
It was the unknown, right?
It was the vaccine mandate. It was shutting down the economy. That was the national emergency.
Yeah.
And some people knew it at the time, but their voices were silenced.
Right. So
what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? We're going to move on. But my point is, she's comparing an apple and a steak, right? PPP loans do not correlate to student loans. It's two very different things. PPP were agreements that businesses like our company that you and I both work for went into with the government, and they didn't fire anybody during the COVID nightmare. Yet, how much productivity was there? I was one of about 5 people who went to work every day. Mm-hmm. Nobody else did.
Yeah.
They stayed home for almost 2 years. So that's why PPP loans were forgiven. So let's not forget that. Daylight saving time. Did we talk about this last time?
We touched on it briefly.
Yeah.
But
so Trump is for fixing the time, not springing forward or falling back anymore. He's come out and he says he's for that. It's kind of like, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. It's something that when we spring forward, it takes me about a week to, get my body clock back. And when we fall back, it's like, I got an extra hour of sleep. I'm a little groggy for about a week. So about a week either way gets it out of your system.
Right.
I put it into the podcast for Democrats, right? Democrats who listen. So Donald Trump is for fixing the time, not springing forward or falling back. So because Orange Man is bad, it means you now have to be for springing forward and falling back, regardless of how you've ever felt about it in your life. Because Orange Man bad, you have to be against this.
Yeah. Trump, this is funny too, his Truth Social post. He says, the House and Senate should push hard for more daylight at the end of a day. Very popular, and most importantly, no more changing of the clocks. A big inconvenience, and for our government, a very costly event. DJT. I like how he doesn't mention daylight savings time. He says the House and Senate should push hard for more daylight at the end of a day. Just the way he phrases that. It's like it's such like a surface level, analysis. It's great.
Yeah. So there you go. He's for it. You have to be against it. And I just pray for my friends on the left that Donald Trump never puts a tweet out like that says, I'm for oxygen. I think you should breathe in and breathe out, because there will be a lot of Democrats out there, and you know them and I know them, Kurt, who will respond with this. Yeah. So just,
Absolutely.
Just breathe, people. Just breathe. Especially if you've been in an accident. If you've been in an accident, your car's messed up, and I had a friend of mine hit a deer the other day. I've never, knock on wood. Is this wood?
Yep.
All right, knock on wood. I've never hit a deer. Have you?
I have not.
Yeah. Ruin your whole day, though. I mean, I felt bad for the person who did it because they had to watch the deer die. So the deer died, and then their whole day was messed up because the front of their car was messed up. That's when you get with Dale at Dale's Body Shop in Blue Springs. There's only one. He's been serving the Kansas City area since 1987, taking care of customers, taking care of you. So if you get in one of those wrecks and that wrecker shows up and your car is even the least bit salvageable, then you say, take it to Dale. There's one that he restored. Is that a 64 Chevy?
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
64 Chevy Super Sport.
My stepdad had one of those, and it was a convertible, right? That was an awesome car that we grew up with. The point that Kurt is showing you here is that these are cars that have come in wrecked or mangled or just old, and Dale Reynolds and his team have restored them. So he'd love to do the same thing for you. Even if you haven't been in a wreck, you got one that you want restored, Dale Reynolds at Dale's Body Shop in Blue Springs will take care of you. They're on 40 Highway in Blue Springs. They've been there for a very long time, and they have fixed cars of mine. In fact, Bob Watson has sent me to Dale's Body Shop on numerous occasions with a check from State Farm, because that's what Bob Watson does. He insures your auto, home, life, your commercial insurance, your boat, whatever is important enough to you to ensure. You need my guy, Bob Watson, licensed in Missouri and Kansas. Bundle your home and car insurance and save. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is always there, and the guy who wears the gold crown, because he's been doing it for almost 51 years.
I'd say congratulations.
Think about that for a second. 816-229-7878. Bob Watson's at 7th and Main in Blue Springs, but he is licensed in both Missouri and Kansas. And Bob Watson, he gets it done. Takes care of me, takes care of my kids, and never steers me the wrong way. And yes, I've sat across from him when I've had one too many speeding tickets, and I've gotten the glare and the speech, and it wasn't fun. But sometimes you got to do that, right? Especially if you get that letter like I got many years ago from the state of Missouri that says if you get one more speeding ticket, you're walking.
I've never gotten that, thank God.
And if you knew where I live, it's a long walk from Blue Springs to Westport.
Yeah, it'll take you like a whole day.
Yeah, and you got to wear your Kevlar.
Yeah.
Did you see that Kansas City was, according to U.S. News and World Report, the 8th most violent city in the United States?
I did see that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have drive-by shootings in Westport. There's almost a murder a day. Why wouldn't we be? And hey, at least we're not St. Louis. They were number 2.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And if you get lost in East St. Louis, good luck. Go with God on that. So before we leave you here on this week's episode of the podcast, it's a what-if moment. What if Joe Biden had not left the race after he face-planted against Donald Trump? And what if he had won the election? Well, Joe hasn't been around much, but he came out to make a speech to some disabled organization, which there's a joke in there somewhere,
he's
right?
The poster child.
And in this clip, you get classic Joe Biden, everything from colored kids on the bus to angry Joe. It's all in this clip. This could have been our president right now.
We were pulling into the parking lot, and I'd never seen hardly any black people in Scranton at the time I was only going in the 4th grade. And I remember seeing the kids going by at the time called colored kids on a bus going by. They never turned right to go to Claymont High School. I wondered why. Asked my mom, why? So in Delaware, they're not allowed to go to school, in public school, with white kids, honey. That sparked my sense of outrage as a kid, just like it does. And these young kids right here can tell you things affect them when they learn about something that's really just unfair and unjust. My dad was an honorable man. And my dad used to have an expression. He said, Joey, your job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay, and mean it. Well, that's what you're all about. That's what the legislation is about. It's about dignity. Simple dignity.
Oh,
here we go.
Everyone, everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, regardless of their standing, regardless of the economic situation, regardless of who they are. Making sure that more than 60 million Americans who are living with disabilities are treated with dignity is who we are as Americans. That's what it's about. I mean it.
It's not a joke.
Dignity at work.
Come on.
At school, in their communities, in every corner of American life. Laws like the ADA need advocates like you. You're the ones that keep it going, God love you.
God love you.
You fight like hell every single day to make sure the law is respected in your 100 days.
Yeah.
This new administration has made done so much damage and so much destruction. It's kind of breathtaking it could happen that soon. They've taken a hatchet to the Social Security Administration, pushing an additional 7,000 employees, 7,000 out the door in that time, including the most seasoned career officials. Now they're getting ready to push thousands more out the door.
Oh, boy.
I miss him.
What
I miss the guy.
if?
I miss him, man. We should bring him back.
Yeah.
Give him a cabinet position.
Well, I have good news for him, because colored kids can go to school with white kids now.
Yeah.
Fix that. The ADA is still there, right? That's still a law, and that's still happening. And did they chop off some Social Security workers who might not have needed to be there? I mean, I challenge anybody who is watching or listening to this podcast who gets Social Security. Has your check been affected?
Yeah.
Let us know. We'd love to know. So meanwhile, with all that good news, until next week, and don't forget May 20th. That's going to be a fun night at Funhouse Pizza. We'll have the invite up. Please RSVP so that we know that you are coming.
And one other thing, too. The podcast is going to be coming out on Monday. You're watching right now, but moving forward, it's going to be coming out on Fridays now. We're switching the day again.
Okay, that's right. We're going to be recording on Thursdays, so you'll get it on Fridays, and that starts next week.
Yeah.
So until that, this is Dale Carter's America.
The views expressed on Dale Carter's America are Dale's and Kurt Wheeler's. They do not necessarily reflect the views of KFKF or Steel City Media. Comments can be sent to dalecartersamerica@gmail.com. Check back for weekly episodes. Subscribe, spread the word, and give us a 5-star review. Thanks for being a part of Dale Carter's America.